Hi all, I am Akina Beni, MSW student of Leila College of Social Sciences. In this video, I am presenting before you about functional approach in casework. So, let us start. Origin of functional school of thought. This approach was developed by faculty members of School of Social Work of University, Pennsylvania in 1930s. Bertha Reynolds contributed more on developing the functional approach. Virginia P. Robinson and Jesse Taft were the faculty members of Pennsylvania School Social Work, which gave birth to the idea of functional school of thought. Taft and Robinson both were influenced in their work by the philosophy and teachings of Herbert Mead and John Dewey, and later by Otto Rank, a disciple of Freud, who broke away from him in the later part of his life. They were the proponent of the work of Otto Rank and established the theoretical framework of functional casework that characterized the curriculum at the school for many years. Government intervention begins in charities. The government started working with University of Pennsylvania. Social work faculty got selected to government welfare positions. The concept of government agencies offering the welfare services also to the clients. Thus was established the functional approach, which gives importance to how the client uses the functions of a social agency. Aspects of functional school of social casework. Major aspects of functional school of social casework is, according to this approach, social casework is a method of helping people through special services given by social agencies in such a way that the experience of using such services or the agency functions. Hence, the name may be psychologically constructive. Potentially for help to a person are inherent in the existence of service. In spite of the differences of the clients and ways of using agency services, the kind of service the agency gives and their purpose remain the same. The use of agency, service or functions gives psychological experiences that differs from the form of another kind of service regardless of the similarity of problem in the people using two services. There are some principles of functional casework, which are diagnosis, that is understanding the problem, use of time phase, that means the use of agency, functions of agency policy and procedures so that the client may be known what he is dealing and finally, and use of relationship. Robinson's approach was heavily oriented to the client's emotional adjustment, not to the client's objective social welfare. Concrete services, home visits, and environmental manipulation by the social worker had little place in her model. Rather, the client chose the agency that offered the services he or she wanted. It was the social worker's role to enable the client to make that choice wisely and to use the agency effectively. The agency itself became, to a Robinson, a simple situation within which the client social worker relationship was developed and played out. It defined the limited the social worker client relationship within it. The client would come to know the test himself or herself, his or her limits and strength. Even the administration of a simple agency function then became individual therapy through a treatment of relationship. Herbert Mead, American philosopher and social theorist. He is often classified with William James, Charles Sanders, John Dewey as one of the most significant figures in the classical American pragmatism. Dewey referred to the Mead as a seminal mind of very first order. Yet by the middle of 20th century, Mead's prestige was the greatest outside of professional philosophical circles. He is considered by the many to be the father of school of symbolic internationalism in sociology and social psychology, although he did not use this nomenclature. Perhaps Mead's principal influence in the philosophical circles occurred as a result of his friendship with John Dewey. There is a little question that Mead and Dewey had an enduring influence on each other, with Mead contributing an original theory of the development of self through communication. This theory has in recent years played a central role in the work of Jürgen Habermas. While Bede is best known for his work on the nature of the self and intersubjectivity, he also developed a theory of action and a metaphysics or physiology of nature that emphasizes emergence and temporality, in which the past and future are viewed through the lens of the present. Although the extent of Mead's reach is considerable, he never published a monograph. His most famous work, Mind, Self, and Society, from the standpoint of a social behaviorist, was published after his death and is compilation of student notes and selected from the unpublished manuscripts. John Dewey. John Dewey was a psychologist, philosopher, and educator who made contributions to numerous topics in philosophy and psychology. His work continues to inform his modern philosophy and educational practice today. Dewey was an influential pragmatist, a movement which rejected most philosophy at the time in favor of the belief that things that work in a practical situation are true, while those that do not are false. This view would go on to influence his educational philosophy. Dewey was also a functionalist. Inspired by the ideas of Charles Darwin, he believed that humans develop behaviors as an adaptation to their environment. His influential education is marked by an emphasis on the belief that people learn and grow as a result of their experiences and interactions with the world. He aimed to shape educational environments so that they would promote achieve inquiry but did not do away with the traditional instruction altogether. Outside of education and philosophy, they also devised a theory of emotions in response to Darwin's ideas. In his theory, he argued that the behaviors that arise from emotions were at same point beneficial to the survival of organisms. In 1894, Dewey became the chair of University of Chicago. Dewey's department included psychology and pedagogy. In 1896, he published the Reflex R concept of psychology, emphasizing the adaptive value of mind consciousness. He criticized stimulus response and session idea. Otto Rank. This approach is based on the personality theory of Otto Rank. According to functional school, social casework is a method of helping people through special services given by social agencies in such a way that the experience of using such services may be psychologically constructive. Otorang was the first psychoanalyst to view therapy as an experience of learning and unlearning. According to his concept, the relationship formed with a patient during therapy allows them to learn ways through which they are incorporate creative thinking and making them realize the present. Otorang played a vital role in creating an impact on the work of different psychologists, including Carl Rogers, Rollo May, etc. Otorang and his theories. Otorang extended psychoanalytic theory to the study of legend, myth, art, and creativity. Otorang, in his book The Trauma of Birth, marks the breakaway from the Freudian theories. During the 1930s, Rank developed a concept of the will as a guiding force in the personality development. The will could be the positive force for controlling and using a person's instinctual drives, which were seen by Freud as the motivating factors in human behavior. The trauma of birth caused rank break with Freud and other members of Vienna Psychoanalytic Society, which expelled him from its membership. The book, which argued that the transition from the womb to the outside world causes tremendous anxiety neurosis into adulthood, was seen by many members of Viennese society as conflicting with the concepts of psychoanalysis. Following the break, which became the complete in the mid 1920s, Rank taught and practiced in the US and Europe. Let us look on to the protagonists of social functional school. Virginia Robinson. She was an early proponent of professionalization who championed higher standards, conceptualized approaches, and contended for a professionally controlled graduate work and practiced professional social work education from her positions at the University of Pennsylvania. Association of the Schools of Professional Social Work also she worked. The turning point in the use of psychology by social workers was the publication in 1930 of Virginia Robinson's A Changing Psychology in Social Work. Robinson's book criticized the growing discontent many social workers felt with the old, paternalized models and proposed a new way to synthesize the individual personality and the social environment. Heavily influenced by the psychiatric theories of Otto Rank, Robinson proposed that the case work should focus not on planning for the social welfare of the client, not on the client per the environment, but on the relationship between the client and the social worker. The client, not the social worker, should be the central act in the casework drama. The social worker, the client relationship was intended to strengthen the client. Robinson's teaching and writing encompassed many fields of practice, but she had a particular interest in child welfare and was an early proponent of the therapeutic child placement and adoption. In 1965, she founded the Otto Rank Association and served as a president and editor of its journal. Her goal was to foster interest in the exploration and application of Rank's ideas to diverse areas of the endeavor, including art and literature. The association continued until in 1983. Robinson died in June 28, 1977, at the Penn Youth Health Care Center in the Donnells, Pennsylvania, at the age of 93. Jessie Taft. Jessie Taft was an American philosopher. She is also remembered for her work as a translator and biographer of Otto Rank, an outcast disciple of Sigmund Freud. The development of functional approach to social work was greatly inspired by her work with Rank. In 1909, Taft received a fellowship and began working with George Mead, James H. Tuff, and William I. Thomas. In 1924, Taft met the psychiatric Otto Rank, a former associate of Sigmund Freud. She had undergone psychoanalysis with him in 1926 to 27, arranged for his immigration to the US as well as his employment at the University of Pennsylvania. It is said that her theory, practice, and network shifted because of Otto Rank's teachings and she became his American champion and translator. Taft authored "The Function of the Mental Hygienist in Children's Agency", which she presented at the National Conference of Social Work in 1927. In 1936, she translated and published Rank's Will Therapy, an analysis of the therapeutic process in terms of the relationship. For all of this, Jesse Taft is credited as the person most responsible for developing the functional school in social work theory and practice. The functional school was further developed and sustained by Kenneth Prey and Ruth Smalley. Caseworkers began to split into two schools, the functional school and the orthodox Freudian school. Next, we are discussing about the stages of functional approach. First stage is the process of diagnosis. The diagnosis is most effective, which is related to the need for some specific service and which is developed in the course of giving the service. The school does not recognize the significance of understanding the total situation of the client. Functional diagnosis recognizes the people cannot be categorized and a plan with a specific kind of service may deny potential growth and change. In establishing a diagnostic conclusion, each individual makes his or her own diagnosis of himself or herself. Diagnosis is a way of engaging in human relationship process which frees the help seeker to determine his or her own goal by his or herself. The client is the center for change capable of continuous growth and development. Helping process, or else known as treatment. In casework, the term is meant as helping process rather than the treatment. Functional school prefers to use the term helping process rather than treatment. School caseworker is not responsible for treating someone who is passive recipient of treatment because the school believes that the center for change resides in the client itself. Social casework through the agency services seeks to release power for improved social functioning. The process of establishing and using a diagnosis serves as a part of casework helping. Total social casework process includes three stages or three time phases, which are beginning, middle, and ending. Beginning. It is stage which intake procedures and getting started. Each new beginning recreates the life of fear, the fear of separation, individualization, the fear of not experiencing, etc. And it is based on the worker's sensitivity to what is involved in the particular beginning and what will make him to reduce the fear, resistance, etc. Here, making the unknown known by the being clear about the agency services and its conditions to avail the service, what can be expected from the agency and what is the requirements and expectations of the agency. The known is the less fear and more manageable than the unknown. Middles are characterized by the worker taking increased responsibility for his part in the situation and by a deepening of the relationship involved. The worker must make efforts to deepen the relationship and make it possible to gain a new sense of accomplishment and power through bring something to conclusion. Ending have their own feelings and equality. Ending may be resisted and feared. Clients may resist and postpone endings even after the relationship has lost its meaning or it's to be terminated under the conditions of agency service. Endings are inevitable for every beginning. Difference between functional and diagnostic school. Diagnostic school follows the theory of personality developed by Sigmund Freud, whereas the functional school is based on the theory of will developed by Otto Rank. Diagnostic school believes that personality is a composite of many interacting forces reacting not only in each other but also influences the social environment favorably or unfavorably. The strength and the nature of the balance of these forces are the result of the individual's experiences primarily of his or her relationship with the parents and other person. The functional school also believes that the process of the development of personality takes place between the interaction of internal needs and the environmental experiences, but such as an interaction takes place and is directed by the human beings inborn will, individual development and autonomy. Functional school, the ego is a result of the creative use of inner and outer experiences through the will that is not produced of the interaction of inner and outer forces. Diagnostic school says that the ego is the chief of psychic energy, the strength of which is determined largely by one's psychosocial environment. Functional school tends to connect his or her effort towards helping the client to release his or her inner capacity of feelings, organizing, and acting. Diagnostics view the goal of the treatment is to increase the individual's ego capacity. Functional school gives full freedom to the client to give direction to his or her own process of the agency. Agency services are made available. Diagnostic school, they believe in doing planned and goal directed help to the client, both psychological and social. Functional schools believes in the client's right for the choices and goals. Diagnostic school accepts the responsibility for appraising the client's capacities and weakness. Functional school is a short-term helping process focusing on here and now. Diagnostic School is a long-term therapeutic model based on an in-depth investigation of the client's life history. The functional school called partializing, focusing only on the immediate issues presented by the client. Diagnostic school insisted on the necessity of examining and treating the total personality of the client even if the help sought by the client was for a limited practical problem. The functional school eschewed the formal diagnosis and settings of the treatment of goals, arguing that these would emerge in the course of the relationship. The diagnostic school, by contrast, insisted on differential analysis and a setting of short and long term goals. The functional school saw the experience of the client in his or her relationship with the social worker within the specific agency setting and how the client used the agency's functions as a key to personal change. The diagnostic school saw the personality transformations, mobilizing the client's ego strengths, resolving inner conflicts, and so on. is central. In the functional setting, the client directed the process of change, whereas the worker was responsible only for his or her own part in helping the client release these processes. To the diagnostic school, the school social worker or school worker was far more central and directive. The functional school stressed the importance of external structures, that is, agency rules, time limits to therapy, agency fees. The diagnostic school believed in a more open ended and constraint free process. In the functional setting, the clients were to pattern their experiences in their own unique ways and thus develop their own internal norms and treatment in the diagnostic setting was concerned with the adherence of the client and socially accepted norms. This is the reference used for preparing this video. This is all about the functional approach. Hope all of you could understand. Thanks for listening.